teachings of George Ivanovich Gurdjeff are at the core of all that is most profound in religions, philosophies, and esoteric knowledge. He presents us with practical, uncompromising self-discovery, self-realization, and self-transcendence. Gurdjieff said the following about his ideas. This teaching is for those who are not satisfied with what they have found in life and who feel that there must be something else besides success and failure in life and beyond what they have been taught in school and by their upbringing. The ideas that he brought to the West and the system of work on oneself, which came to be known simply as the work, have the power to transform human consciousness and its understanding of reality. Anyone who begins to practice for a time the efforts of self-observation, divided attention, and self-remembering under the guidance of someone who has understood and lives the teachings will discover their radical impact on the human psyche. Gurdjieff essentially synthesized ancient esoteric teachings and made them approachable and applicable to the lives of rational Western individuals. A seeker will find in his teachings an immeasurable treasure, the essence of so many other teachings, both spiritual and psychological, on the inner life. This extraordinary system of thought, which ranges from the most intimate psychological insights to a grandiose cosmology linking the individual with the universe, is a synthesis of practices and teachings known as the Fourth Way. It is named the Fourth Way to differentiate it from the other ways of conscious evolution: the way of the monk, the way of the fakir, the way of the yogi. Each of these classic methods of human transformation focus on different aspects of the individual: emotional, instinctive, intellectual. The Fourth Way deals with all of these dimensions at once, seeking to create a balanced individual whose inner work of transformation occurs in the midst of his or her daily activities. There is no need for monasteries, ashrams, or physical asceticism. Yet the efforts made are as intense and demanding as any of the practices which take place in those settings. The work is entirely inner, invisible, and individual. Then there is the man himself. Gurdjieff was the archetypal master, beaming with extraordinary psychic powers developed in secret schools and monasteries somewhere between the Caucasus and the Himalayas. Brutal, soul-shattering insights, marvelous humor which was both ribald in the extreme and breathtakingly penetrating. He also had a capacity for love that was matched only by his ability to express rage. He was a master hypnotist, a master actor, a master healer. Those who encountered him often had opposite ideas of who he was, usually as a result of his own intentional behavior. He sometimes gave the impression of being a simple charlatan to arrogant individuals who would come to question him, while to others he was the most enlightened man they would ever encounter. This powerful master with eyes that pierced to the depths of the soul was also an old man whose pockets were full of candy for the children. This mysterious outsider who revealed new horizons that tore down society's social conventions and cherished beliefs was also closely, though secretly, associated to the Russian Orthodox community in Paris. Several important teachers in their own right were born from his tutelage. P.D. Uspensky is the most famous one. He presented the work from a more intellectual perspective, though it still remained very practical. His book, In Search of the Miraculous, is one of the best expressions of the work ideas available to us. Other leading students included Rodney Collin and Maurice Nicole, Both have written remarkable books that shed light on what is now called the Gurdjieff-Ouspensky work. Nicole's psychological commentaries on the teachings of Gurdjieff and Ouspensky consists of a 5-volume set of essays that cover the minute details of working on oneself. Gurdjieff called this path the way of the sly man. This term is a poor translation of the French le rusé, which has less negative implications and might better be translated as clever in transforming the difficulties of the moment into opportunities for spiritual awakening. Similar to the Zen Buddhist masters and their saying that each moment is the best of opportunity, Gurdjieff wanted his students to learn how to use the circumstances of each moment, both the internal and the external, as food for the development of a new state of consciousness. According to the fourth way, the central obstacle to higher levels of consciousness is a phenomenon known as identification. Ouspensky describes it in this manner. In this state, man has no separate awareness. He is lost in whatever he happens to be doing, feeling, thinking. Because he is lost, immersed, not present to himself, this condition is known as a state of waking sleep. When we are identified, our attention is directed outward and we are lost to ourselves. Self-awareness is then a state in which we become aware of ourselves and are no longer hypnotized by the external events before us. There is a higher level still to be reached, which the work calls objective consciousness. In this state, we come into contact with the real world, from which we are cut off by the senses. Some psychologists deny the existence of higher states of consciousness, dismissing them as dream states. But in order to reach the more silent areas of consciousness, what the work calls our higher centers, we must get beyond the noisy regions of our minds in which we spend so much of our time. The attainment of higher levels of consciousness is closely related to certain religious practices which are found in all cultures, such as meditation and contemplation. These are difficult paths to tread because our attention is always being caught by the ceaseless chattering in our heads. Yet it is possible to become receptive to a state of pure consciousness without thought, a state in which truth is revealed to us directly, without the use of words. One of the most practical and meticulous studies of the ideas of this inner work on oneself is found in Maurice Nicole's masterful psychological commentaries. Here the reader will come upon the nuts and bolts of transformation. Nicole states somewhere in these 5 volumes of lectures given to his students that as you make progress in the work, what you took as yourself begins to look like a little prison house far away in the valley beneath you. This is a vivid expression of the third state of consciousness, or self-remembering as it is called. These flashes of greater consciousness are the unexpected results of the strenuous efforts made in order not to lose oneself in the rush of outer circumstances, to be cleansed from the acids of negativity, and to maintain a heightened awareness grounded in the present. Ouspensky told his students that it is only when we realize that life is taking us nowhere that it begins to have meaning. This observation is not a philosophy, but a pragmatic realization which can fundamentally alter our perception of ourselves and of the world around us. Maurice Nicole gives a hint of these first stages of real change in his commentaries. This gradual withdrawal of energy from the customary, easily resentful and brittle feeling of I is accompanied by a gradual, new and broader feeling of I, as if one were living in a larger place. It is like being introduced to a new civilization, to another form of life. He points out that by using the inner camera of self-observation, we begin to open a mind above the level of the sensual mind. Self-remembering, then, is a process of being lifted out of our ordinary sense of self into a purified, detached space well known to those long practiced in meditation. But in the fourth way, this birth of new awareness can be accomplished while one crosses a city street or takes out the trash. Nevertheless, despite the practical approach of the work, self-remembering remains as intangible and paradoxical as any spiritual exercise. Reminiscent of the Zen koan, Rodney Collin told his students that we cannot remember ourselves until we forget ourselves. And at the height of his powers of understanding, he united the fourth way with the wisdom of all times and places. To feel beauty, to feel truth, that is self-remembering. Self-remembering is the awareness of the presence of God. Gurdjeff broke through the dogma of institutional religion and revealed the dynamic truth within the teachings. He made clear the psychological insights beneath the rust of rote repetition and blasphemous misuse of the words of enlightened teachers. His insistence on verification forced the student to come upon the stunning fact that life is indeed more than that which the senses perceive, and to reinterpret spiritual insights in the context of their own lives. Belief was to give way to experience, and experience to transformation, so that the new man could emerge out of the ashes of rejected illusions. Gurdjieff tore through our most cherished beliefs with astonishing force and irreverence, stung our vanities with brutal honesty, and called us to that ultimate journey toward the consciousness of who we are and who we are meant to be. Behind the exotic masks of this oriental magician, rogue, teacher, was great compassion. Children and animals sensed it, while seekers of all classes and types found healing and new life from his sometimes bizarre requirements. Gurdjieff came to wake us with uncompromising affection and assist us in accessing our deeper selves. No one walks away unchanged from the teachings of this intense master who has taught us to discover someone even more elusive than himself, the true nature of our being.